So let me tell you a little bit about our fabulous speaker, who I'm really thrilled to bring here. I have known Michael Horn on and off for probably 20 years. I met him first at an International UFO Congress in Lachlan, Nevada. If any of you ever used to go to those, and then they moved eventually to Phoenix. They were fabulous conferences. And now the largest one is Contact in the Desert, which I think you've also been at, Michael. You've also presented at. So a little bit about Michael's background. And I apologize, I'm going to read this because it's so extensive, but it's important that you understand the gravitas of the presenter today. So Michael Horn is recognized as one of the world's leading authorities on UFOs. He has over 40 years of experience as a science researcher and began his own study of the very famous Billy Meier UFO contact case in 1979. Michael's research and online presence as well got the attention of the Air Force Office of Special Investigations and the State Department in January of 2017, when they contacted him to discuss the Billy Meier case in more detail. And of course, 2017 is when we began to have more official disclosure with a New York Times article, Glowing Orbs, and most of you are aware of that. So the military had studied the hundreds of Billy Meier photographs in detail, with independent photo and film analysis, with experts from JPL, NASA, McDonnell Douglas, IBM, and award-winning special effects experts, all for detailed evaluation. In the 1970s, the Meier UFO photographs were shown to the late astronaut Gordon Cooper, who remarked when he saw these images, very fine indeed. They are authentic. Astronaut Gordon Cooper himself, you may know, was a witness to a landing at Holloman Air Force Base. I don't remember the exact year. You might know. I think it was in the 60s. He was there told to, with a film crew, to film some new advanced aerospace equipment that was going to be landed by probably Skunk Works or something, and it was going to be a demonstration that they were supposed to film. And before that happened, a UFO landed, and they filmed it. And then immediately the film was, confiscated, and the other aircraft never landed. So it's very interesting, okay? Very interesting. So Michael's research goes far beyond the UFO phenomenon. It focuses on what he considers even higher standard of proof found in the Billy Meier evidence. There are hundreds of examples of specific, previously unknown scientific, environmental, and geopolitical information that was published by Billy Meier decades before these facts could have been known by anyone. An example of this is when Billy Meier alerted the world to the grave danger posed by an asteroid, Ophiuchus. You may have heard of this. He alerted the world to this in 1981. 23 years later, NASA officially announced that they had discovered Ophiuchus. The reason Ophiuchus is important is that it is on a trajectory to do a very nearby Earth fly of Earth. It has in the past. I think it's in the Sumerian records, but it's also due in 2029 and again in 2036. NASA got the attention of it a number of years ago, but not that long ago, because it is a potential ELE event. If you know what that is, it's an extinction level event for an asteroid with our planet. So we pay attention to this as the ancients did as well. So Meier brought our attention to that in 1981 in his work. So Michael's authentication of this evidence through copyright verification attracted the attention of several professionals outside of the UFO field, like a former trial lawyer named Robert Joyner, who stated, Michael's scientific and empirical scrutiny of the Meier evidence is beyond reasonable doubt. Michael possesses, a great mind with tremendous capacity towards critical and discriminative thinking skills. Former McDonnell Douglas astronautical engineer and theoretical physicist David Froning confirmed scientists had made breakthroughs in their understanding of the possibilities for interstellar flight through studying Billy Meier's information. Another example is aerospace engineer Matthew Wykizik, also from NASA, Honeywell, and Boeing projects like the Space Shuttle and the International Space Station also came forward to support the authenticity and the information in the Billy Meier writings. So one of Michael's quotes, and this is where I will end with my introduction, is, "The confirmation of existence of intelligent extraterrestrial life would be the single most important development in all of science and human history, exceeded only by contact with those beings. I think we will find that these people who have had contact literally hold the key to our future survival." On that note, please join me in giving a very warm welcome and respect to our presenter, Michael Horn.
Thank you, Jennifer.
If you need me, I'm right here.
You're right there.
I'll be here.
Okay. That concludes our presentation, and I thank you for coming. That was great. I want to thank Jennifer especially, and perhaps that will become even clearer as this presentation goes along. And I want to thank, of course, Kat and Jennifer for daring to have this information material brought forward. And I'll tell you this, I had a certain presentation prepared, and I kind of ripped it apart 2 days ago because I wanted to focus on certain other aspects that I wasn't covering in the presentation I was developing. So this is, I'm trying it out on you. You know, you're the so-called guinea mammals for this evening's experience about the Billy Meier contacts. And I will ask that if you think of, if something arises while this is going on, that you have comments or questions or challenges, make note of them so that we can address them hopefully successfully during a question and answer portion of the program. So I'll ask a couple questions first. How many people know about the Billy Meier case at all? Okay, that means that a significant number don't know about it. So I normally ask how many people think it's real, and since there's not a lot of people that know about it, how many people think it's probably a hoax? Oh, that's one less barrier. And we've had decades of barriers in the UFO world about this material. So I'm going to kind of jump into it a little bit and hope I have the slides in the right order. So who is Billy Meier? And especially for people who don't know about him, who haven't heard about him in the past, I'm going to start with some photographs. And I'm starting with a photograph of Billy Edward Albert Meier. Before he was Billy Meier, he was Edward Albert Meier. And I'm starting with this because Meier probably has the most documented history and life of anybody who is still, currently alive, any kind of public figure, for instance. I mean, there are people older than he. He's going to be 89 in February. But there are very few people in the public arena where we have photographs starting when he's 4 and going up to 8. By the way, some of the anecdotal things will be popped in and out of this as we go along. And one of the anecdotes is that by the time he was 7, this is taken in when he's 8, by the time he was 7, it is said that he had the thinking capacity of a 35-year-old man. We're going to discover why that claim was made. And in order to do that, what we do is we introduce, pardon me, his alleged first contact person. Meier was born in 1937, that is. And, pardon me, in 1942, he met this man. Now, the way in which he met this man, he was growing up in a beautiful kind of pastoral environment in rural Switzerland. One day he heard a voice speaking to him in his head. This was a little unusual for a 5-year-old boy growing up in Switzerland or anywhere else. And he wasn't quite sure if this was going to be something that would drive him crazy. He thought maybe he was possessed by some evil force. So he went and he had to meet with his parish priest, who interestingly enough assured him that he wasn't going crazy and that it was okay for him to, march forward in this experience that was going to unfold for him. It is said that one day shortly thereafter, he went outside to go into the forest, went into a clearing, and he was drawn towards this particular area, clearing, where he sees a pear-shaped craft sitting on 3 strut-like legs. And standing in front of it is this elderly man who appears to be wearing a deep-sea diver suit without a helmet. And what he said, and what he even was writing about many years ago, is that this man he had no feelings of fear about him. He said, actually, there was a benevolence. There was a certain kind feeling he felt, and the man beckoned him to come forward. He did, and he said that this is the event that began his ongoing contacts, being tutored by this man for 11 years, and that it was through this man's tutoring, his mentoring, and using various technologies, because he was invited that day to come on board this pear-shaped craft. There is a lot of information about this. We're going to move a little past it in order to get into the meat and potatoes of this, but if there's questions more about, this interaction, we can cover them during that period of time. These contacts would last, he said, for 11 years, and then he would begin contacts with another person, a woman whose name was Asket, and she would be tutoring him beginning when he was about 16 years of age. Young manhood, if you could say, adolescence and all. And it would be at this time that in his writings, in his biographies and all, he would go into in depth what their experiences were traveling around this world, seeing other worlds, according to the information in this case. I like to say it because there's things I can't prove. I think there's plenty that any of us can prove if we want to look into it. We don't have to believe anything in this case. It is what it is, and we make up our own minds. When he had these experiences, he was being presented with information about our past history, the history of these alleged extraterrestrial people, and also things that would be coming to us, as the previous teacher, the man whose name was Svath, also had begun to teach him and ostensibly show him events that transpired in the distant past and events that would come either with great likelihood or certainty to our world in the times to come. So we're back here, 1942, then 1953, and here Billy Meier is still Edward Albert Meier at age 21, when he still had 2 hands, 2 arms, and you'll see more about that in a bit. He was a very well-traveled, and is, let's put it that way, a very well-traveled man. A passport of his shows him with being, entered into Jordan, among many places. Now, how many people here have ever seen the movie Zelig with, what's his name? Woody Allen produced a movie. He produced a movie, I'm jumping away because I think it's relative to this. Woody Allen made this crazy movie many years ago where he, in the character that he is in his movie, he's popping up in all these newsreels and film clips throughout a good number of years with famous people. So it was one of the early uses of a kind of convincing CGI, at least, in video. Well, Billy Meier is kind of like, in a way, a real Zelig among many things. He is here, I'll point to you, you see the man with the seeming white X across his chest. If you look just to his left, just below him, there is a man. This is, I'll just step over here for a second. X-Man, Billy Meier. Billy Meier is here with a group of Jordanian partisans who were involved in some kind of, feisty stuff, with the, put it that way. And then we have also, while in Jordan and other countries, we have Meier as the Phantom in Jordan. Yes, here he is. He's packing a couple of weapons. He's got the jacket with a Swiss cross on it. I'll give you a little background just to kind of move into this. It's a very unusual story about this man. When he's 16, he runs into trouble in Switzerland and runs off to the French Foreign Legion. During that time, which wasn't all that lengthy in the French Foreign Legion, but he learned how to handle weapons, take care of himself and all this, but he also saw that that was a direction that the French Foreign Legion was involved in that would turn him into an efficient killer. He didn't want that. And he literally marched out across the desert in leaving the French Foreign Legion. There were two people, apparently, who saw him, who wanted to get out too, and they followed him. And what he did, because he knew he learned a lot of survival skills. He wasn't so sure about the other two. He had a canteen, which by the time he's marching along for days, it's already empty, and he keeps holding it up to these guys and drinking to encourage them to keep coming after him to get his water as a mechanism to draw them safely across the desert. I don't know if they made it or not, but he did. And here's another photograph of him at that time. Then again, we have Jordan, 1963, pardon me. These are two of the palace guards for King Hussein, one of the very powerful and prominent people that this otherwise unknown man would meet with the help of the extraterrestrial, in this case, Asket, who would take him around and say, you go over there and you'll be able to get in this and meet these people. He apparently met Indira Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi, Haile Selassie. He met, Saddam Hussein, who was right around his same age at the time he met him in Baghdad. We have that in a film where he explains more about all of that. And here he is with, King Hussein's guards, palace guards in Jordan. Now, that's 1963. Then a year later, pardon me, not a year later, same year, we've got something coming a year later. Here he is. There's a couple other people in the original full photograph here. I'm not showing it because I'm not going into that particular story. There are thousands of pages of information here. When we say singularly authentic Billy Meier contacts, we mean singularly authentic. That doesn't mean that other people have not seen, UFOs. Probably most of the audience, one way, shape, or another, have seen UFOs and had their various experiences, but I dare say none of us have been on board craft with people for the past 83 years. Here he is in Pakistan. This is what I wanted to show you when I said a year later. Here he is. He's wearing a sidearm, and he's wearing a cowboy hat and blue jeans. This is where he was named, if you will, Billy, by, I think it was a woman from California who said, gosh, you remind me of Billy the Kid from American folklore. And he said, Billy, huh? She said, yeah, I'm going to call you Billy. And that is a nickname that stuck with him all of this time. He lost his arm in a bus accident, terrible accident a year later. He had been told by Asket that there were certain events that would come to him, and she named this one. She said, we are not allowed to interfere in your destiny. You'll just have to go through the things you have to go through and learn whatever lessons come with them. And it was a very brutal accident where he's sitting in Turkey in a bus, sticks his arm outside the window on a hot day, and a drunken, I think, bus or truck driver comes barreling down and literally bangs, boom, bomb, pulls him through the window. And they thought he was dead. They left him in a ditch to die. Until hours later, somebody heard him moaning. They took him to a hospital. His left arm was mangled beyond anything recognizable from the elbow down, and so they amputated it without any anesthesia, and he was delirious for days after that. There were all sorts of things that happened. Billy Meier, his life of adventure. All right. Now, in 1974, 1975, he's returned with his wife and children to Switzerland. He works as a night watchman. He also has a partial disability payment. And shortly after this period of time, he's going to take possession of an abandoned, run-down farmhouse. And in so doing, he will do most of the work for several years, literally single-handedly, to build sidewalk, to renovate inside, get running water, electricity, build retaining walls, plant trees. And then in the evening time, he's working as a night watchman. And then in 1975, he's going to begin his official contacts. That means that up until that time, the 1942, the 1953, these contacts will not yet be made public. They will be slightly later, but the ones that will start in 75, this is how we're going to come to know about this case, and we're going to learn about a term that was literally invented by one of the extraterrestrials that he'd begin meeting with and that he would be using and setting in motion. This is Meier in 77. He's already starting to work to renovate a place in 83, more recently, 2010, and more recently. Now, his next official contacts would begin in 1975 with a woman we know the name as Semyaze, not Semyaza from the Bible, Semyaze. January 28th, 1975, he would hear a voice speaking to him to show up somewhere with his camera and to await what would come. It was a female, again, speaking to him. One of the first questions he asked at that time was, you know, my first teacher was this man Svath. And then I met with this woman, Esket, and now you, Semyaze, you're both females. Why did this change? And they said, well, we know that as males of Earth, you can become a bit rougher and all, but you're more likely to be a bit more genteel and feel less threatened in the presence of females. You'll meet some men too, but we thought we'll continue in this little tradition for a time. And her father would be the next man from the race that he would meet. But it's important to say that before this meeting was over, they're speaking about what's coming for him. You're going to have many opportunities to come. You will know where to be and when to be. You will take photographs. You will be able to take films. And this is really very, fundamental to the authenticity, because Billy didn't just go out one day and take a few photos and it was great. He would know where to go to take 30 photos at a time, 30 photos and films. So this is something also that we'll speak more about later, how this contributed to the understanding of some investigators as to the authenticity of the entire experience. But the point here is that this woman, Semyaze, said, you will refer to us as Pleiadians. I think most people here have heard that term. He said, but why? There's no life in the Pleiades, and your race of people, I already know, are not called Pleiadians. She said, yes, you know that, and I know that, but once you start to come public here, once you're more prominent and you're getting known in Europe and other places, you're going to find that there's going to be a lot of people popping up saying that they are channeling Pleiadians, meeting with Pleiadians. Their boyfriends, girlfriends, wives, or husbands are Pleiadians. They're a hybrid baby. And she said, look, we have an important bit of work to do with you for some time. You won't need to come to us each time and ask, oh, are you meeting with these people too? Just so she'll say, we will be meeting with nobody else. And you will then eventually, in years to come, you'll be able to reveal the name of our race, but you will see that this is going to become a very popular trend, and UFOs are going to become a very popular topic on Earth, and you are going to be pushing some controversy, so get ready for it. All right, well, as promised, oops, slide's jumping on me. This is her father, who went by the name Ptah, similar to the Ptah of ancient Egypt. He also had a high-level associate that works with him, Quetzal, not to be confused with Quetzalcoatl. He's met people, Billy's met people from different races, different colors, different statures. This is Manara. There's a place called Manara's Landing in Switzerland, where her ship set down in a meadow and there were swirling grass patterns. We have come to know crop circles, similar technology, the gravitational field underneath, being emanated and projected downward. And also on ice, there's some interesting photos. There's a lot of things we won't show in this, but believe me, we have it all available for free online. Most all the things that you'd want to see. Florina, Bermunda. Now, Florina and Bermunda are, at least currently, Bermunda is a contemporary contact of his. The events that are taking place in Eastern Europe and in the Middle East are monitored by Billy and her, and occasionally some of the other people. They speak about it in the articles that are published online that are called the contact reports. They are the literal transcriptions of the conversations that they have. Billy has published now, of the official ones, the ones that are meant for the public, 921 as of a couple days ago, of these contact reports have been published. And they cover so many different things, so many topics, Earth history, coming events. Delve into those if you want an interesting ride, and also history told in slightly different ways than we have been led to believe history took place. So what would the Billy Meier Contacts presentation be without some of the pre-digital era photographic evidence? So there's a few photos here, maybe 4 photos, from his time in India in 1964. This is all going to be all pre-digital. There were no, computers or digital cameras at the time. Asket showed up at this time in India, and she and Meier would often walk around the grounds of this ashram that he was studying Buddhism at the time. He studied the major religions of the earth. He traveled around, and he would go to where there were, very, let's say, older and reputable centers of learning for the different religions. For Buddhism, he was at the Ashoka Ashram here in Maroli, India. Now, for those that may not know it, if I don't show it, there is a woman down there. I think you can see dark hair, perhaps, and a figure. Those 8 lights in the sky, and this is one of the very few lights in the sky photographs that Billy has taken. Those are Asket and like 7 other of her companions in these craft. We see Asket's craft a little more clearly around the Ashoka Ashram. In those photographs there. What we've become most familiar with, for those people who've ever seen or know about Billy's evidence, what we're most familiar with are the 1975 on to 1982 photos, which are stunningly different and stunningly clear. So I ask you to look at this and notice there's this fluting around the edge. There are some dissimilar metals. This is, they say, one of, actually, Billy took between 1,200 and 1,400 photos, 8 films and a video. This is one of the clearest, closest ones of this type of craft. Here, it's a little farther away. I won't have to tell you the obvious, but I'll just show you some more of these. What we can say about these is that they are remarkably close and remarkably clear. In order to take this photograph, obviously Meier had to be fairly close to the craft. Here he is either on a hillside or inside one of the craft. We'll get to that. That is like one of the manned craft up there. That may be a scout craft with either nobody in it, completely automated, or one person. In the foreground, you see a tripod because Meier would begin to take a lot of photographs with basically, usually trees or tripods or something in them for perspective, for size. Here are three. This is also a clip from a film that we have where these craft are hovering and even rotating, then they suddenly, two of them disappeared, goes on and on. Meier also took a photograph of four of the craft at the same time. And then this is one of the most famous photographs. Why? Well, if we get another shot of it, skeptics like to say that that's simply a model tree with a tiny little craft on a string or somehow supported. It'd be pretty hard to figure out where you're going to hang a string, considering he's also a distance from it. Up until recently, there was this debate that could take some traction. People could say, well, no, it's a small model, you know, and it's in front of the tree. And my webmaster, Melissa, decided to use some much more contemporary software. I don't do any of that stuff. I don't know the first thing about it. I'm lucky to get through this. If you can see the bottom line, no blue fringe on this edge, it's hidden by the branch. This is about the fringing, this kind of technology. Some of you may be familiar with this technology. I know nothing about it other than what I read here. But through doing that, they could determine, and maybe you can't leave it up for you to look at it, that branch is in front of the edge of the craft, just ever so slightly. This was not made easy for Billy in certain ways because the opportunity for debunking it, it's like, well, it could be, but it isn't. Only when we started to get better technology, and I think this was deliberate, were people able to start to determine, yes, these are large objects. Yes, they're a distance from the camera. They're real. Now, as I said, they would photograph them. They used trees prominently. There were a series, I think in this total series, there were about 9 of them. You can see reflections in the metal, reflection even perhaps of the tree, hillside, clouds and all. Billy is sitting or standing to this side of that tree in the foreground. So it turns out that the viewfinder on his camera, this thing was set to infinity. It was broken, set at that level. He didn't do it deliberately, but he would get clearer photographs of the objects in the distance, as if he had deliberately focused into the distance. Right? Now, I'm going to be politically incorrect and say, you know all the people who for the past few dozen years have been talking about UFOs with all sorts of theories and everything, all the experts and the government people and all, where's their evidence and what is it? Think about it. So here we have it. And as I said, there's several more, but you get the idea. They moved the craft around the tree so he could snap this, snap that, snap this. And I mentioned before being inside of a craft. Here he is here is a photograph from inside a craft with 2 of the UFOs outside the window. The color on this photograph, the screen that he shot through, the window he shot through had a tint to it, which isn't always the case because when he shot this even clearer photograph above Switzerland, there's a craft very close in the foreground down there and a craft farther away. But photos taken from inside the craft could suffer from some distortions that he was told had to do with energetic fields in the craft. But for the most part, things were pretty good. Now, one day, early on, I think it was actually still in 75, if not, it was 76, He's asked by an extraterrestrial, I believe it was Semyaze on that day, to gather some people together for some photographs. And he did. He invited a number of people, I don't know, 6 or 7 people, and they didn't see anything when they were there. They were standing around. He would take photographs. One of the ones, and there's a bunch of them, but I decided to just show this one. Because here are the folks standing around, and there's the craft, kind of fuzzy in the background. It's important also to say, Billy, every time he went to buy film or get a camera, it's a matter of record in Switzerland. So when the investigators went into Bear Photoshop, there where he bought and also delivered film for development, they could tell him any and everything that he ever bought, etc. He never bought an enlarger. He never bought chemicals. He only bought 35 millimeter camera, and then I think it was an 8 millimeter non-digital video camera and a tripod. It is said here that the craft would come in and out of phase of visibility to him. And when it came into phase, he would have a quick second to click it. There was another photograph or two where it's half in and half out, where they wanted him to take the photograph. I'm teasing you with it because you can get all this online for free, honest to gosh, to your heart's content. Now, we're looking at this traditional disc-shaped craft, right? But then he comes up with this. And the skeptics have gone absolutely nuts over this. According to them, it is a trash bin, garbage can lid with Christmas ornaments on it, right? Okay. Now, I should tell you that there is a man involved with another part of this case that we won't be going into today because time will not permit it. But he was a professor at Oregon State University, meteorology and comparative religion. There's a reason he got involved in looking into the Billy Meier case, which is quite fascinating. But unless we have time at the very end, I will not go into it, except to say that with these trees, such as in this and in some of these preceding photographs, he sent these photos off to guys he knew were forestry professors. And he said to them, forget about these silver things if you can. Are these model trees? Are these miniatures? And he got the responses from all of them. They said, well, no, these are full, grown, mature trees. Reason for them, you've got pruning marks and what's called nesting. I'm not a forestry expert. I can only tell you that's what they said. The nesting that takes place at the top, these pruning marks, this isn't how model and miniature trees look. They're very tidy and neat. And we can tell you that fits the description of such, and they had the species, they said, and that looks like it's a mature one, about 40 feet tall. 40 feet tall. Same thing with the ones I just showed you, tall, mature trees. Well, he took a number of photographs of these, actually took 63 photographs of this, which is called the wedding cake, or WC UFO, because people said, that looks like some kind of a wedding cake. He said, okay, that's the wedding cake craft. Now, who knows? We're looking at something we have no reference point for. This will do it?
That's a button right there.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, to point.
Yeah.
How sophisticated. This is great. I don't have to do this. Okay. If I can hit the button right anyhow. There we go. Oh, I knew how to work that.
Michael,
Yes,
speak towards the microphone though, so
shall do. Okay. I guess I could try over here. Okay. So that is the WC UFO, also known as the wedding cake UFO. Now, when this photograph came out, the skeptics jumped on it right away and they said, obviously a small model painted gold in front of a black curtain. I'll give you the rest of this and then we're going to come back to this for a slightly interesting anecdote. So some people grabbed the image right off the internet, dropped it into Photoshop. They messed around with the contrast and the brightness. lo and behold, we now have an object emanating some form of energetic field itself. This is one of the meter-high posts that they have in Switzerland, other parts of Europe. They have these white posts along the way. They're about a meter high. There was a graveled road down here, and up here was a grassy hillside. That was one take on it. Then another guy did the same thing, and they are messing with it, produced still an energetic field, something back here, we don't know, but it's obviously hovering, I think it's obvious, above the road with the grass here, because remember, we start off over here, we have no hint whatsoever that this could, possibly be anything other than, well, they said it's a model. But I'm going to jump for a moment back here. Now, here you've got this row of globes. There's a rim, and then these globes come in. Now, I'll try to get to some more clear photographs of this in a moment for other reasons. Let's just go back here. Now, if you see that, and here, let's do it again here. You've got this here. You see this thin rim here, thin rim. Then you've got these. Now, what I noticed some years ago was this burnished area is where just a thin rim appeared right before this and those globes. So if you follow me, we previously had a thin line here. This was right above it. Now we have this expanded part. So I said to Billy, does this cupola or whatever extend up? He says, well, yes, they have a separate little room that when they lift the top up, it gives them more room up there. And in one of the contact reports, he was speaking about this, and he said to them, I don't know how Michael found that out, but about the extending of the cupola. And they said, oh, yes, well, that's, as you know, that's where the little area for, bathing and showering, whatever it is up there. I mean, it's kind of normal stuff for everybody to have a UFO with a bathroom or whatever. So here we have that closed-in area, okay, that's connecting smooth to those. So one more time, if I can do it, to beat the horse alive. This is not visible in this photograph, which Billy took when it was about 15 feet from him, either sitting on the ground or just hovering above it. Right? Okay. Now this is kind of unusual, to say the least. You see all these different things here. Let's see if we can get you a close-up on it. So there were 100 of these jewel-like objects, red, green, blue, and if you look here, inside is a blue lens as well. Further information in some contact reports seem to indicate that these are energy accumulators of some form. And this object is said to have space and time travel capabilities. Okay, this kind of machining that you see here. Of course, the skeptic said that Billy must have made this. 100 little jewel-like things around, this kind of machining, all this stuff. Billy has one hand, and the prominent presence of tools in Switzerland. I've been there 22 times. If you go in there and you open the sheds and all, you see diesel tractors, you've got axes, you've got all sorts of nice clumsy stuff that doesn't allow for this type of machining. And Billy doesn't tend to carry around anything except utility knives and what have you. They are very involved in Switzerland at their center with the maintenance and the development of nature there and the preservation of it. You don't see these anywhere inside the garages or what have you. Let's see, pardon me, I'll catch some water while you can watch this little video. Billy is there. In the distance, a tree with that craft. Over here, not seen, is Quetzal. They are communicating. He's asking him things about the craft, blah, blah. Billy would like him to move it around the tree. He says, nope, not going to make it easy, but you can zoom in. About as absolutely motionless as you can get. Billy's also going to take some of the previous photographs you saw, where the craft is right there next to the tree. He'll come out from down here, partial left arm. He's going to take a 35 millimeter photo or two of it while the taping is going on. As we showed you before, there it is. Okay. We saw that one. It says 64. What am I going to do? Here it is. There's a carriage house visible in the globes that's behind it. Now, Matthew Wiskowitz, Jennifer mentioned him. He had been convinced it was a hoax until he revisited the case and looked into the evidence. Jennifer also mentioned the late astronaut Gordon Cooper. This, which we will see in a moment, oops, if we can not run into that problem. There we go. He was interviewed in Russia. It's a short clip.
I think a similar kind of thing is, let's look at the case of the Swiss, the man in Switzerland who was contacted by extraterrestrials.
His name Meier. Yeah, Meier.
I saw the pictures the day after the investigative team went to Switzerland. I know the investigative team very well, and they came to my home, show me all their pictures. The day
Very fine photos, yes, very fine.
Very
I have seen
They
them.
were absolutely authentic.
Эти фотографии были абсолютно аутентичными.
And yet the whole world has tried their best to make them out to be fake.
Jennifer mentioned a USAF OSI investigation. Actually, the man that we're quoting here was a former, he was retired from the USAF OSI, DOD. Some people have presumed that he is an unreal person. The skeptic said, there's no evidence of this man. And that prompted some people just in the last week, believe it or not, this goes back to 2017. In the last week, a guy who corresponds with me a lot had been in the military, and he got into the military files, and indeed, this is a real investigator with very, very high level. He was at the top as an case investigator, supervisor. And we tell the whole story in the film. We have a new film out called Singularly Authentic. And I kind of go into the details. This man had called me out of the blue Saturday morning in January 2017. Billy Meier case, you talk about it? I said, yes, I do. Were you willing to talk to me about it? Gruff-sounding older guy, kind of not much younger than me. And he said, I want to know. I said, well, yeah, of course I talk about it. He said, I think it's a hoax. I said, okay. He says, you still talk to me? That began a 3-month, it wasn't a conversation past that point. It was literally an interrogation. This was somebody who knew how to ask questions, and he knew the right questions to ask, and he didn't argue. He said, I see, okay, next. And we went on. He disappeared after 3 months and came back 5 months later. And in the film, I tell you what happened. I'll just give away a little of it. He wasn't a skeptic any longer about the Billy Meier case. He became a supporter of it. I'm glad to say. So we're going to move on to something Jennifer had read about, the higher standard of proof on this. And that is, as we can see here, previously unknown, prophetically accurate, scientific, environmental, geopolitical, medical, and economic information verifiably published by Billy Meier before all official discoveries, which could only have been obtained through space and or time travel. That's our claim. We say about our film, Singularly Authentic, definitive proof of ongoing contacts with UFO time travelers. Now, this isn't the Basaggio guy or whoever said, I was on Mars and this. Does anybody in ufology ever realize that presenting evidence for claims would be a good idea? No, we're just going to tell our stories. I'm sorry, I'm a little sour about these things after almost 50 years of investigation and then being blackballed from, starting in about 2008 on, from most UFO conference expos and events because I had the bad, let's say, taste to challenge the people who were presenting, to present evidence. I'm running out there with, it's not my evidence, it's Billy Meier has got mountains of evidence and nobody except stories and stories. So why would that get to me? Well, we're going to get to that. The moon landing hoax? Anybody think it was a hoax, possibly? Okay. This was published in 1958 by Billy Meier. Take your time. He says that there were 5 manned moon landings, they were authentic, that there would be, they hadn't happened yet in 1958. He said there'd be a fake one. There would be a hoaxed moon landing. 1958. But he's also predicting the ostensibly authentic ones. A lot of people say none of those happened either, Van Allen belt, whatever. But isn't it interesting that, 10, 11 years before Apollo 11, this man publishes this information? Why? And then we have an article that was from about, 9, almost 10 years ago, where they went into the details as to how it was hoaxed, how it was that the lander and the flag and all that would be there for any subsequent manned moon landing projects from anywhere. And here's a hint. Apollo 13, having trouble in space? No. According to their information, they didn't have any trouble, but that was what the game was to report they're having trouble, blah, blah. And I don't even know all the details personally about Apollo 13. I didn't care. But I found it very interesting that what they said was that was a cover for them to bring then lander or flag, whatever, to go to the area supposedly where this original moon landing happened, which did not happen, to put these artifacts down and in place so that if and when the Russians, Chinese, or whoever, they'd say, oh, well, the Americans must have been here then. And in here further, and it's a nice long article, you're free to take it apart, they're simply saying things that other people have said, such as this was hoaxed in order to get a leg up on the Russians on an international arms race, blah, blah, blah. I can't prove that. I don't know that. But this is what they have published. And of course, we can prove that he published the advanced information about it before the events occurred. Is that the only thing? Well, no. There's a show called Redacted online, hosted by former Fox News anchor Clayton Morris. How many people know anything or ever seen that show? A few, not a lot, but he's got a very large following now online, 1 million some people. And he's gotten very interested in the UFO topic. Starting about 3 years ago or so, he interviewed me about 3 times. Maybe we've had a total of close to 2 million views and all that. But I'm not going to show you the interviews with me. I'm going to show you some information here. How many people are aware of the fact that they claim that there's some kind of a construction city, what have you, underneath the pyramids in Egypt? Okay, right? All right. Well, let's see what Clayton Morris had to say about that. Oops. Geez, I'm so bad with this thing. It's worth it. I'm doing it deliberately, I must be. Nope. Okay. One more time.
But Billy Meier, in his contactee publications in 1953, and this is verifiable, by the way. This is copyrighted, verifiable information of Billy Meier specifically talking about going underneath, being transported in a beam ship, and going underneath the pyramids in a massive underground chamber. Now, you might laugh at it.
Right. Yeah, I'm going to laugh at it because it just can't be true, except what you're looking at here is one of 3 pages full of information. This is in a binder. This is how the contact notes or contact reports were originally published when they were first translated into English in these binders, 100 pages each or so. This is the first of those pages of the 3 that cover the information where he's describing being under the Great Pyramid. Asket, remember her from our previous introductions? She took him underneath there. And what he saw, way down about a mile below that, was a huge space that had been created in which there was already sitting a very large spacecraft. There was, on the way down, he and Asket, this is according to information of the case, because he describes all this in these pages. And we have links to all this because I don't have, I can't give you 3 pages out of a booklet, so why not direct you to where it's all published, which we do. So he describes going down with Asket a long stairway hallway beneath the pyramid. Periodically, every now and then along the way, there are these robotic guards. Billy's concerned that they can see him, and she said, no, the device that you are wearing, that I'm wearing, renders us not visible in this dimension that we're passing through, but you have to be quiet, because if we start to talk, they're going to start figuring out we're here, and we'd be killed. So they get down deep underneath here, according to this story. He sees this, this huge craft, and then he looks over and he sees a platform, and there's some artifacts on it, and he walks over, and he turns around and he says, oh my gosh, this is the cross of the crucifixion, and there's the spear of destiny and the crown of bloody thorns. And she says, yes, it looks like that, doesn't it? Except those artifacts have long since turned to dust, at least the cross and the other non-metallic artifact. No, these are reproductions that these people have made. They would pass muster. Your scientists would be able to date them back and everything. And he says, well, what's going on? And she says, these people have an agenda. They are human beings. They're a splinter race to the Pleiadian, a.k.a. Pleiadians, that Semyaze's race is. And they have had for a very long time this base under the Great Pyramid from which they do all sorts of nefarious things. They are intending to create a world domination through a false second coming, and they even have an American corn merchant under a kind of hypnotic control, preparing him to believe he is that second coming. His name is, and maybe some of you know this name, Reinhold Schmidt. For any of you ufologists, you can look him up in ufology. There's people like Reinhold Schmidt and others whose names have floated through this material. And he said, oh my gosh, she said, they are, this is their agenda. You need to see this. You're going to be involved with certain things in the future. This will all be tying together. So he's written about it also. In these 3 pages, some of that information is to be found. UFOs, a higher standard of proof, information that does not appear anywhere else. Nothing to believe, but you can do your own due diligence. We have Clayton Morris again about drones. Well, how many people remember it was back, I don't know, in the summer or before, New Jersey drones are appearing in the skies, right? This article just appeared. I guess days away. Oh, sorry, month and a half, whatever. New Jersey drone and UFO scare solved. Private contractor unveils strange aircraft, takes credit for sky mystery. Well, let's see what we have here. December 17th, a year ago, before that announcement is made, Clayton Morris is talking about fake alien invasion.
All of this was, though, foretold years ago, before even the 4chan post, by the way, by Billy Meier. Many of you who are awakened enough know about the Billy Meier case. If you're not awakened yet, you'll dig into it. You'll understand once you start diving into it. In fact, as you know, this singular authentic UFO case, 82 years old, is ignored by the media, censored, suppressed, and attacked by so-called UFO experts, as my friend Michael Horn likes to say. It's the Billy Meier UFO contact case, he's laid all of this out in text form. It's been copyrighted material decades before it's actually happening right now. I know, sounds crazy, but you can go read about it. Read about it on theyflyblog.com. That's where you can see it. Michael Horn does a great job of cataloging all of this there. In fact, they just posted this a few days ago. These drones are not from the Pleiaren. These are human craft, posted on December 15th. Go read it for yourself, and you can look at the drone video sources, and you can also see how this was predicted decades ago, what we're currently seeing right now, this man-made, quote-unquote, fake alien invasion.
So a year ago, Clayton Morris does that. Short while ago, comes out, the drones aren't extraterrestrials, they're man-made. Gee, surprise. Here we have something else.
Unter. Höher als unsere oberirdische Technik. It's much higher, the technical belongings are much higher as our belonging we have on the earth.
Wow.
And they are that people you can see around the world since many, many years, hundreds of years, but you can see UFOs. The most of them belong to them, and the other one belongs to the future of the earth. But the most of them is from underground. It's a state.
It's a state. Niemand.
I know where it is, but I don't have permission to tell where.
In National Geographic magazine, The Blue Men of Morocco.
Yeah.
Selbe?
It's not the Blue Men of Morocco.
Okay.
No.
It's a different.
It's different people. Yes. By him I have seen two of such people.
And then they disappeared.
No, 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 no.
Oh.
They was walking and they was walking around with Dharmavara, with the monk, and I had a chance to see them because I was nearly them walking the road, you know. They have nothing to do with our people here over the earth. They stay for themselves. They have only some few people they talk with them, like Dharmavara. You know Pobol Sheng?
Yeah, well,
You know
I
her?
know who she is. I know who Pobo is, but I don't.
Yeah.
I don't have her acquaintance.
Dharmavara was the uncle of her.
Yeah, yeah. And she used to see Esket
Yeah,
come in the room.
right. Nur wenig blau, weißt du, nicht stark blau, so very soft. Ja, die kennen sie auch. Aber die haben keinen Kontakt mit ihnen, wollen keinen Kontakt haben. Warum genau, weiß ich auch nicht. Sie distanzieren sich einfach davor und sagen, es ist nicht im Rahmen ihrer eigenen Bewusstseinsfähigkeit wie die Plejaren. Die Plejaren sind etwas höher, die anderen etwas tiefer. Aber sehr hohe Technik. Ihre Vorfahren sind von den Sternen, also von anderen Welten. Ihre Vorfahren, ferne noch Vorfahren. Wie heißt das in Englisch?
Forefathers.
Ja,
Their
Vorfahren.
ancestors, their
Ja.
forefathers.
Es sind zwei Gruppen, die sie gleich benennen, darum die Plejaren sprechen nur von 4 Gruppen, sind in Wirklichkeit 5.
5?
Ja.
3?
Und 2 nennen sie eben gleich, darum reden sie nur von 4. There are 5 groups, but they have for 2 of them the same name. Ja.
Aber dieselbe Menschen?
Nein, nein. Eine Gruppe ist die unterirdisch und die andere Gruppe, die ist erdzukünftig.
Oh ja.
They come from the future. Earth future. Und die nennen beide beim gleichen Namen, darum reden sie nur von 4. Erdzukünftige. Weil ihre Technik zukünftig ist gegenüber der Technik von heute, was wir hier haben, ist zukünftig die Technik, verstehst du?
Ja, ja.
Und die anderen, das sind erdzukünftige direkt. die kommen aus der Zukunft. Die sind in unserer Gegenwart unterirdisch.
Ja.
Ja, aber sie sagen denen auch Erdzukünftige.
Ja.
They call them Earth future
Future travel.
people
Yeah.
because they have a very high technique, higher as we have here on over Earth. About that they say Earth future people, like the other real Earth future people. Ja, right. Ja. Eben und denen sagen sie Erdzukünftige.
Erdzukünftige, ja.
Earth Future People. Und für die, die unter der Erde wohnen, sagen sie genau gleich Earth Future People. Infolge ihrer sehr hohen Technik. About her very high technical stamp they have.
Entwicklung.
Ja.
It is the time. We'll move along so we cover most of this. I know there was a little redundancy there to try to give an idea of the Earth future people and the different groups involved. So we have Clayton Morris one more time.
So are we barreling towards a naval war in the Arctic? Now, we even highlighted the warnings from Billy Meier, who back in 1987 warned that war would be coming to Scandinavia and this area, and that the West will go to war with Russia over control of these shipping lanes, and he even specifically talked about Russia moving troops in the Argahansk region. And guess what? They have. So all of these things are now coming true. You can believe it or not. That's totally up to you. This was 1987. And it turns out in our 2023 prediction, it turns out it was right, because now the Trump administration is scrambling to play catch up to Russia and China. This week, Christy Nolan.
It's 4:15, just so you know.
Thank you.
Das ist richtig. That's right. Weißt du, es beginnt jetzt eine Phase, wo verschiedene Länder versuchen, die Pole zu erobern, und das wird auch wieder Differenzen geben, die Pole, Nordpol und Südpol. Die wollen jetzt da droben Ländereien für sich schnappen, die Amerikaner, die Russen, die Kanadier, die Chinesen. Das gibt wieder große Differenzen. Das ist eben noch im Nordpol und Südpol sind noch viele Ressourcen vorhanden, oder? Und die wollen sie sich sichern. Aber ich weiß nicht, ob das schon begonnen hat offiziell oder ob es immer noch inoffiziell ist. Ich weiß nicht. Ich weiß es nicht, ob es offiziell oder inoffiziell bereits. Aber jedenfalls ist jetzt die Zeit, wo das kommen muss.
So we put out press releases when Billy Meier had published information about these things. As Clayton Morris goes into it, they're already happening. Some of the things that Billy started to publish when he was 9 years old, 10, 11, 12, he warned about the illegal immigration, BlackRock, climate change, AI, specifically, poisonous, plastics, overpopulation, a hot topic, but they explained what we need to know about it. 9/11 was the first time they warned about that. The EU dictatorship. COVID, first warned about in 47. The vax, the origin of COVID. Richard Nixon and Chairman Mao. Not Bill Gates, whatever they're doing now with their vaxes. Back then, they already warned about how toxic the vaccines would be and how they would affect women and cause miscarriages, tons of stuff that we only are hearing about in our research in the past couple of years. Ukraine war, they warned about, Islamist terrorism, murderous Israeli Mossad, Netanyahu, anti-Semitism would be on the rise, suicide bombers, there would be taxes on prostitution. Why is he writing about that? It came to pass. Suicide tourism, and then this one that is controversial, unpredictable, domineering, stupid, erratic, and confused president, pathological megalomania who will behave more and more like Adolf Hitler, incapable of governing, sick and stupid government, incompetent supreme ruler of the USA. Well, he kind of minces words there. That's their opinion. 48, he predicted earthquakes in central Italy 2016. I went online about, 3-4 years ago to search. Were there any strong earthquakes in central Italy? Because they're predicting that there's going to be 5 volcanoes that are going to be blowing big time soon. Strongest earthquakes on record in central Italy, 2016. The discovery of thousands of undersea volcanoes would be made in the future. They published that in 48. Within the last 2-3 years, they discovered 16,000 of them. Russia defeats America and the West in World War III. Rise of neo-Nazism. Now, who wants that to be true? I don't. None of us do. Again, I'll go faster so we can get to questions if there are any. 46, destruction of nature and the climate. I want to say a quick thing. A lot of people in the politically polarized world, people on the left recognize climate change problems. People on the right, I'm generalizing here, deny it. Well, eco-terrorism is not a good thing. That comes from the left. Extreme focus only on financial profit comes from the right. Boom. And so we have to learn to think and to see things as they are. This climate change will be with us now for 2,500 more years. Okay, and down here, remember 1946, will produce an artificial intelligence that will one day turn against Earth humans and fight them. We've got a lot of this, more about this. Citizens of countries being biochipped. Biochipped, 1958. How that people will be controlled right down to the last meter. They won't be given control over their own lives. How far away do you think that is from now? AI, again, 1958, creating phantasmagoria through movies and television, as well as later through a worldwide netting of computers and electronics. The internet, 1958, yeah, through which they deceive themselves and see things that do not exist. They can no longer distinguish between reality and fiction. They lose themselves more and more in the labyrinth of life. 2017. It will be recognized by the world elite that the maintenance of their might can only be guaranteed by the overpopulation being drastically reduced. It isn't Billy Meier and extraterrestrials who are advocating for the destruction of existing human beings. They're saying, you've overpopulated your world. You have a planetarium or a terrarium. You keep on throwing organisms in there. It kills everything off. Can't you people think? Go forth and multiply. Where was the rest of that? And you stop at a certain point. So the elite that everybody talks about who want to kill everybody off, they get it. They're not political. They don't take a left-right position. They say this threatens us because they can recognize everything's polluted, too many people taking all the resources, degradation of everything. They are trying to plan for and carry out a humanity elimination, certain parties. Billy wrote about this because we will, as a society, as a world, refuse to see the reality. And, well, how would you possibly reduce population without killing people off? Well, they said, there are natural cycles of attrition, so if you have birth stoppages at certain points, and then gradually the population reaches a more balanced, reasonable number that does not extract from the planet unproducible, continued abundance, clean air, all those things. Everything is degrading because we don't understand. This won't be popular, but how about this? The USA population shall get dispossessed and partly heavily armed population being advanced on by military and police powers. How many folks have been watching some of these things like the ice things? These are dry runs for a greater, imposition or implementation of that type of action. It won't matter who's sitting in the presidency. This now has been, we've crossed the bridge, so whoever inherits, whether it's this side or that side, they can use all these things that are in excess. And really, if you see things the way they are, you see cause and effect, the law of cause and effect. It tells you that if you want to come into a country, you should go about it the right way. I worked as a janitor, done all sorts of things where my coworkers were lovely people, but they got here illegally, and at the time it was wonderful. The debt comes due in strange ways, in very unfair and cruel ways at times, unless we know how life is and how it works. When we learn the way to live, we won't put ourselves in these crazy situations. Civil wars, Billy's been warning, since 1981, the 2 civil wars are coming to the U.S. I laughed about it when I read about it in '86, not laughing anymore. Already in the USA and in EU dictatorship, there exist secret plans to start a war from Germany. He publishes this in 2017. Secret plans. What did they just publish in the Wall Street Journal? Germany's secret plan for war with Russia. They sometimes, in the past, when they go to the future, they use certain terms that they know will be used when these things are discovered. This is time travel, not the nonsense from a whole field that distorts the truth. This is the true story of 9/11, predicted in '47. You can read it there. Here's what I'm really concerned about. This was published in '87. The USA is going to be a country of total destruction because why? Global conflicts. America's creating enormous hatred against itself. America will experience enormous catastrophes which will reach proportions barely imaginable to people of Earth. The destruction of the WTC by terrorists, they were, whoever they were, will only be the beginning. Here again, America and Russia will clash with violent force. Russian attack on the American state of Alaska. This is an excerpt from 2007 we recorded for one of our films, The Silent Revolution of Truth. And I hope it's wrong, but if it isn't,
The end game is this, and this has been said even before we launched the war in Iraq pertaining to U.S. military policies. Unless the United States withdraws from all military bases and from all wars and stops sticking its nose in everybody else's business around the world, there will be a third world war, which will eliminate 3/4 of the population of the planet. It will devastate the North American continent. We will be among the hardest hit. All of our major cities will be destroyed. We are in for a bad time. And I said, Billy, I remember reading in the prophecies that Russia is said, it's a high likelihood Russia will invade Iran as well as Turkey and then go into Scandinavia and this and that. This is all stuff allegedly published thousands of years ago before we even knew about Russia. And I said, but now America and Israel are talking about attacking Iran. And he said, well, I'll tell you this. If your country attacks Iran, there's an enormous likelihood that Russia and China, which are becoming closer all the time, will attack your country.
Okay, computerized weapons warned about in 1987. I'm not going to go through everything just because we're running short on time and there are a couple things to get to. More about computerized weapons, AI in the Third World War, published in '87. The harsh truth and what most people don't know and why most people don't know about it. We discovered some previously unseen photographs from the Meier case. I contacted a committee headed up by Representative Andre Carson. They said, oh, send us the photos. We sent them. They were Asket ship interacting with a top secret stealth plane. Photographs that were taken quite some time ago, actually. The House subcommittee received them, and then they censored the photos. That's why nobody ever heard. Instead, you have one after another stupid, pointless, dead-end UFO committee. Yes, sir, I was privy to these secrets. Good, no evidence, but thanks very much. Here it is. Wendell Stevens, lead investigator on the left, Billy Meier on the right. sitting where eventually there would be an assassination attempt against him. Wendell was a wonderful person who did all this research, incredible stuff. Here's the thing. They teleported Wendell forward in time. Asket helped him. Groom Lake area, when that F-117A, piloted by Ray Farley, that top secret stealth plane came, he was there to take the photographs. We did extensive research on that. My webmaster, Melissa Osaka, did, to find that test pilot, to show that this was the one time they had the camouflaged stealth plane, lots of stuff. SETI, well, you'd think they'd want to find all this stuff, wouldn't you? They've been funded to a tune of over $250 million so that they can continue to succeed in not finding what they claim to be looking for. We sent them this is a press release I put out in 2015, having sent SETI everything they could possibly want. Now, this one might be a little hard for folks, but I'm going to do it anyhow because we must share the truth. People will have to deal with whatever they want to on it. This is me speaking with Jan Hartson.
Since Meier's photographs have been authenticated
I don't have to go through it all, but
et cetera, unless people
if we're
want to
tight on
contest
time.
that. You have, in the Meier case, the best photographic evidence ever presented. You have 5 categories or 6 categories of still irreproducible technologically evidence. And you have the thing that, what struck me the most was just what you were saying at the end. The whole idea of how futile it is for us on Earth to be fighting with each other and doing all this stuff. The how to getting around that is also contained in the Meier case, and disturbingly so, that we would encounter certain things if we did not change the way we live. In other words, Meier's prophetic information, we are now in it, we're living it all the time. You didn't get a chance to, to see my presentation on it, but
I'm stopping that for the sake of time. In that, Jan Hartson gave me a great song and dance about why MUFON will not look into the Meier material. Okay.
Not till today.
I'm sorry?
Not till today.
That's right, not until today. Thank you. Because here's the other shoe to drop. In 1953, Billy Meier is told not only about the coming assassinations in 10 years of the Kennedy brothers, and different potentates and rulers and poisonings of popes and all sorts of stuff. Laundry list, 1953. She's told that MUFON will be the main opponent up until today, thank you, to the Meier material. And here's one that I'm going to get to by introducing this man, Kenneth Smith, former Vice President, Director of Operations, Orbital Sciences, now called Northrop Grumman. All of the stuff that this guy, big budget, he managed a $15 to $20 million budget, solid guy, met him some time ago, and then he had an associate when he worked at Orbital, who was also then still, he was a former OSI guy, still under top secret clearance stuff, and he shared this. This ain't easy to go through. But this is what Ray, I know his full name, and I've also been in contact with him briefly. He was invited by somebody in the higher-ups of MUFON, wanted to recruit him, and they explained to him how they operate. And I imagine you can probably read that fairly well enough. The completed investigations have never been revealed as the U.S. State Department and the CIA basically control this activity. According to Ray, they tried to recruit him. Make of that what you will, but I can tell you this, Billy Meier is famous for a lot of one-liners. There aren't enough shovels to bury the truth. So a brief 2-minute trailer to our film, which we have available for sale here. We've put it out in a rather unique way on a portable drive, actually the kind of thing you can put on a keychain, because with what is coming from AI, you'll not be able to trust too much that you get online. You won't know. So we're making a workaround on it. So gather, let's see if I can get that to go. The common portrayal of extraterrestrials as little green men or little gray people is part of a disinformation campaign. I was fascinated by the UFO evidence. It's incredible, unparalleled, authentic. There is nothing here to believe. We're looking for facts. This is about something even more important than UFOs.
You know, Billy Meier was doubted for many years.
I know that
What do you think
story.
about him? The pictures are so vivid, and the Pleiadian story so vivid.
In 1953, and this is verifiable, by the way. This is copyrighted, verifiable information of Billy Meier specifically talking about going underneath, being transported in a beam ship, and going underneath the pyramids in a massive underground chamber.
We are told even at that time who set this in motion, the progenitors of this disease, which I would only later come to be able to find that he had published information about the damage to the ozone and atomic energy, indeed, back in the 1950s.
According to Meier, we might as well roll cigarettes with our paper money for those of us that are still smoking.
In 1987, Billy Meier is warning about computer-based weapons. What does that mean? AI. How did they know the future unless they have time travel? Folks, it's right here. We're not going to have time travel now, but this is the evidence for it that somebody does. That's our blog right there. One last thing to say. If these contacts are real, what's the reason for them? Nobody ever asks in ufology why there would be contacts. It isn't for us to chase the lights in the sky. It isn't for us to create careers as a so-called UFO experts. It's to help us assure our very threatened future survival. And we need to learn the way to live in order to do it. It cannot be found in poisonous partisan politics, nor in the myriad of confused belief systems, religions, all of which cause separation, conflict, aggression, and endless wars. Okay? So to live in true peace, love, freedom, and harmony, we turn to the non-religious, belief-free, creation energy teaching, about which Billy's written 60-plus books, presented to us by Billy Meier and the previous 6 prophets, many of whose names we know, assisted by the Pleiadian extraterrestrial human race. So if there's time for questions, comments, or what have you, challenges, would this be it?
Check, check.
Thank you.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Is it on? Yeah, there is a green light on. So it's on? Wow. How fantastic. So we're turning the mic on right now. Thank you so much, Michael.
Pleasure.
I have followed some of the Meier material and some of the MUFON material he discussed, so I can talk about that too, and Jan Harzine and IBM, and how the government looks into the back door of MUFON. It does. And those of us who have been in the organization long enough know that. But we try to do our education thing anyway, because it is a way of building community and educating people. So we do have some time for questions, and I also want to tell you that they have this film, this documentary they produced on a flash, and your lovely wife here has some, so she'll be in the back room with it. You can also turn on the light in the back room in case you need to leave. You can pick something up. But we do have time for Q&A. I have a mic. I'm going to run it around. Please feel free to raise your hand if you have questions or comments. This is a really powerful and hard to digest a little bit. as you forewarned.
I know. I
Yes,
know.
as you forewarned. So do we have some comments? Very good. I'll come over with a mic. This helps everybody hear your question.
I was just wondering if Billy Meier discussed the geoengineering, the spraying they're doing with aluminum and barium and coal dust, burnt coal dust, coal fly ash. And has he told about that in advance? I mean, it's been going on for quite a while now, but.
Okay, this is one of the reasons why I love this case, because there's things, when I made an agreement with Billy in 2004, I asked if I could represent him. There'd be no pay going, to me or to him from either of us. I'd have the right to agree, disagree, say I don't know about things, which has occurred. What Meier has said and what his alleged extraterrestrial friends have said about this is that certainly for certain parts of this, we've misunderstood that because of the damage to the atmosphere, when we see contrails and we think that they are spraying, at least when they were commenting about this, they said, no, it's not correct. There are stupid things in kind of lined up in the chute where they're going to try to block out the sun and all this, but they said the damage to the atmosphere has produced conditions whereby normally behaving contrails will be altered in their appearance, and that the idea that people are being sprayed, this is what they said at the time, with aluminum and barium is not factually accurate. I had a pilot write me laying out a whole thing saying, I'm glad somebody's finally saying this because I know it isn't so. So let me give you more of it. I figured when I heard about this so-called spraying of chemtrails, that one thing that would have to be verifiable would be massive numbers of people suffering overtly from barium and aluminum poisoning in hospitals, which I've never seen. Does that mean that there is no spraying? No, it doesn't. It means at the time when they were commenting on that, which was in the 90s primarily, they said, no, there's a disinformation thing here, as there is with a lot of stuff on Earth, where somebody takes an idea, runs with it, and goes into a realm where it isn't accurate. The other place where I disagreed with them was about crop circles, where they said that most of that was done by people on Earth, and then they later on said these Earth foreigners have a hand in the ones that couldn't have been made by people on Earth, which I wrote an article for UFO Magazine 1998 or 99. I said, I don't think that this thing that I know so far, that all crop circles can be attributed to Earth people, is accurate. I think that somebody has also seen whatever the Playaran craft have done to the Earth using electromagnetic things, and they're using something similar to show what great creativity can do with technology as opposed to that which we destroy ourselves with. So in short, they disagreed about the barium aluminum stuff. They said that there are plans for also putting stuff into the atmosphere that are really bad ideas and stupid. So I don't have a clear-cut thing where it has been, let's say, delved into further in recent times. So if people say, I don't agree with them on that, I'd say, well, I understand, because it's kind of hanging there.
Yeah, one wonderful comment. Recently we had massive coronal ejections just within the last 2 weeks. And within like 3 or 4 minutes, we had major earthquakes and major volcanoes go off. So we are affected by coronal mass ejections. In fact, I follow the work of Robert Schoch, and he writes quite a bit about the potential of that as a life-threatening event.
Why is it Playaran and Pleiadian the same reference?
Why is it the same reference?
Yeah, I mean, why doesn't he say Pleiadian, or why don't we all say Playaran?
Well, because what they knew at the time was that when Billy comes forward, and he's not somebody that's got a big, powerful organization and lots of money and all this, he'd start coming forward with his evidence, which nobody else has, and people would start to say, like Barbara Henklau and others, Barbara Marciniak, whatever, I'm channeling the Pleiadians, because they picked up that term. It never was used before that time, before Billy Meier put it into the lexicon, or whatever you want to say. So they let that run until about 1998, I think it was, and they said, you should now use the name that we call ourselves from the Pleiades, because there's no life in the Pleiades that we see in the night sky. They are in an altered time-space configuration, 500 light years from Earth. Again, I can't prove that, but this is the explanation as to why, because what they basically were saying is the people that use that term are not telling the truth, and you don't need to ask us. Whether they're lying deliberately or imagining things or whatever, there'll be some of all of that, but it will not be us. And they wanted to have one person on Earth, as they've done 6 other times in the past, going back 13,500 years, who would simply bring forward the information as they have it, as they give it to him, bring forward the same teaching that the first Enoch, Elijah, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Emmanuel, Muhammad. Who? What? Yeah. We don't know anything about our true history that we can take to the bank when it comes down to UFO contacts, prophets, people involved with central point personalities in religions. I could give you one to drop a shoe, but you'll probably throw them at me at this. I would say, if you want to, whatever your beliefs are or aren't, look at Isaiah 7:14, Old Testament, and look at Matthew 1:23. This is integral to this case. Because Billy Meier, and remember I said there's a photograph, and I'm not going to go into it, sitting there with flowers. Meier and a former Greek Orthodox priest were the co-discoverers of hidden scrolls in an ancient tomb on the outskirts of Old Jerusalem in 1963. And these scrolls were looked at, they attracted the attention of a Professor James Deardorff, the professor who sent off the photographs to the forestry experts because he was involved in comparative religions. He said, this looks like a Bible hoax to me. And he spent a long time researching everything in the scrolls and the book of Matthew. And he said, this publication that Billy Meier has come out with, it has been translated now into English, the Talmud Emmanuel, the teaching of Emmanuel, spelled with a J, is the original teaching of the man we know as Jesus Christ, correcting 350 problematic statements in the book of Matthew, 150 of which were not even known until after Meier published, first time in German, 1970s. So here's the thing about Isaiah and Matthew, and I'm not a biblical scholar, I simply did some digging. And his name shall be called Emmanuel. One time in the Old Testament, one time in the New Testament. And what this Talmud is saying is, this is the original writing of the man whose name got changed for various conveniences, not trying to offend anybody. He indeed was crucified. He survived the crucifixion. He and his family went through different countries, ended up in Srinagar, India, where the tomb for Mary and the tomb for this great teacher who came to us, who was crucified in his own land, in his own time, came to teach us. That tomb is there. Man died at 110 years of age at the base of the tomb. 2 human feet are inscribed with holes in the center for the crucifixion marks. There is a guy, Paul Davids.
Paul was our speaker next month.
That's right. And Paul will tell you more about this. This
He
is
did a
so
film.
heretical. I'm
Yeah,
sorry?
he did a film called Jesus in India.
Yes, with a friend of mine, Martin, I forget his first name.
Me too, I forget his name.
Great guy. Anyway, they went to Srinagar and all of this. Why have there been 28 attempts on Meier's life, 3 of the last 3 this year? Why have they been trying to kill this man? Why doesn't anybody in ufology, all the experts, every one of whom I've sent this material to for decades, I've gotten to everybody I could, scientists, started a dialogue with a scientist from NASA who's going to talk to me about all this, until I sent him the publications showing that Billy Meier has published 60 corroborations have come forward on his material, foretelling events and discoveries on Mars, the moon of Triton, moon of Neptune, I think it is, Venus, Jupiter, the most important discovery of the Voyager mission, was that Io, the moon of Jupiter, is the most volcanically active body in the solar system. Wendell Stevens had that information under his arm well before they made that announcement on March 12th, 1979, JPL, the most important discovery of the Voyager mission. Io is the most volcanically active body in the solar system. We have a lot of this in the film. You get a chance to sit down with it, and tons of free stuff at the blog. It'll drive you nuts, because now the NASA scientists that I sent this stuff to won't write back. We are in a time of unbelievable deceit and profiteering at every turn. Profit above truth, to the detriment. We are facing, these things. We see something on the screen, World War III, AI, this, that, and the other thing. But we become so, bombarded with sensationalism day in and day out, that how much of that sinks in as to where we're going. When the prophet Enoch, 10,000 plus years ago, foretells a third world war, with, as the Pleiadian said, we tell you in contemporary terms what he wrote here, because there was no country named Russia at that time. That's what he wrote here. So what do? And this is where I can't stand so-called ufology. Nobody wants to tell the truth. Everybody wants to sell a book or something or other. You send them the Meier material, they won't mention it. They refuse. I've spoken to Avi Loeb for 15 seconds, wrote him emails and all this. No, he's got space rocks he wants. I sent him tons of stuff on Meier. They don't want to know. They don't want to know. The next time anybody gets up and tells you they're a UFO expert, ask them for their evidence. I'm sorry.
You're very good. Oh, here I come. Thank you.
You're
But
welcome.
this is fantastic. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I'm wondering about this subterranean city, because it seems like we need a new pattern of development if we're going to survive our species. What can the Meier's revelation teach us about how we need to build cities? What did he see?
Well, the first thing is we have to back it up to what I said. We have to learn the way to live. We are at building cities. This is a step ahead of ourselves. We are just on a path of destructive constructions, destructive relationships, destructive everything. I'm sorry, the main business of this country is war and terrorism. I'm not political. I can simply read the news, and when I go back and read the stuff that we don't hear about, that Billy goes back to the foundation of this country with George Washington. What actually happened when George Washington was an emissary of peace from the French was coming, I guess, at the time of that war. He shot him dead on the spot. And that was the beginning. I'm not the author of that. We need to learn the way to live that has been hidden, obscured. Pieces of it are to be found here and there. Like, well, they have no religious beliefs, but if you think about it, since they believe in universal laws, like the law of cause and effect, doesn't every religion have a version of the golden rule? Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. We cannot politicize away murdering people that are not criminals in boats because we claim that they may be bringing terrible drugs into the country. When was the last time even a hamburger jumped down my throat without my picking it up? What are we talking about here? All of these things are crazy, and we have to question it. Whether you're Republican, liberal, this, right-wing, left, it doesn't matter. There are universal laws. We cannot transcend them. We cannot ignore them except at our peril. So the question about building cities, we would organically, if we read Billy's books, we carry a dozen of them, German on one side, English on the other, so people that read both languages can make sure the translations are correct. No beliefs, no shoulds, no punishments. This is how these things work. Here's what we say, try that and apply it and see if it works. It's like, I want to fix a computer, well, I get a manual. If I want to fix human life, I've got to read stuff that is not biased. We would organically go towards a great reverence for our dependence on nature. We are not bigger than nature. You know, so people say, well, wouldn't these people underground? They've probably got the nature thing down pretty well. If they've been there for a long time, they are the descendants of former gods in Egypt and Central and South America. Origin, the stars themselves. So it's said. They're obviously not blowing the place up, or they wouldn't have been living here so long time, and underground, long time, if we would use the common sense. Billy has said, and I have a video on that too, true deep geothermal would solve all of our energetic needs to 90-something percentile. Not the stuff of injecting toxic water in and getting a mess with that. The true geothermal, now it's being done on smaller scales. Switzerland, California, some different places. They said that would solve the energy thing. We don't have to pollute with all this stuff, but this is the power of course, preaching to a choir. You have petroleum companies. When I heard about the deep geothermal thing, and other people write about it, Billy's not the only one. It's not like he knows everything that nobody else does, but they have good reference points for why certain things work. And when I saw deep geothermal, well, what if we woke up tomorrow and it was Shell deep geothermal? I don't care. No more pipelines, no more pollution, no more tankers leaking and all of this stuff. Let Shell be the ones. Who cares? We would be able to breathe again. So it's complex because human beings everybody wants to be famous today. That's what they care about. They want to be successful and be millionaires and everything. I'm sorry it's a lecture, but this is loaded for bear. Yes, another question?
Tell everyone in the audience about, can you go to that image for the companion drive?
Oh, I do have an image if I still have this working, I don't know. We have two drives. One of the drives that we have here, one is the film and one is what I call the companion drive. These fit on keychains or necklaces or whatever, and that's over 100 of the spiritual teaching or creation energy teaching articles. A complete film where Billy answers questions on the teaching. There's a worldwide Salome peace meditation that is practiced at the same time. There's several tens of thousands of people on Earth. 3.2 billion extraterrestrials in their federation are doing that meditation on our behalf to try to mitigate some of the craziness just through meditation. Positive energies coming this way. There's a 77 really beautiful, effective meditations that person can do. They're written in English on one side, German on the other. I put down a person doing a reading in German, because if you do the German ones, you can tune in a little more to the essence. It's said, but the English works fine. We're trying to make this material available in forms that are not corruptible. The best form, Billy's books. They're in our bookstore. You can go to our blog, and I get a little tongue-tied with this because I've been reading, I'm still reading and rereading, because his teaching is so clear and it's so deep. Reincarnation, death and dying, meditation, fluidal forces, things we know nothing about, the psyche, the 12 recommendations that were the source of the 10 Commandments, the origins of different races, people that have come and gone. 22 million years ago, the seeding of this planet, of Mars, and of a now long destroyed planet with genetically modified human beings who are, in many cases, our forefathers, how that came about. Things that go back immeasurable times and distances we know nothing about. And the organized forces in many areas, politics, religions, and others, like it that way, because that's where the control comes. The teaching is rooted in this first thing, 100% complete self-responsibility for everything. We must learn to see things as they are, not as we want them to be first, or as we fear them, we don't want them to be. see a thing as it is? How do we see that? Process what we want to do with that. Do we want to use another book, The Might of Our Thoughts? The foundation of all action and all feelings is the thinking process, most of which we conduct unconsciously. They want us to learn how to think consciously and to be aware of what we're thinking so that we can make better informed decisions, so that we can straighten our feelings out, to get control of our thoughts, to get control so that we are not in a hyper-aggressive state that we, to a large degree, inherited 22 million years ago when our forefathers on another world were genetically modified and their lifespans were reduced to an average high of 100 years. You have no idea what's in this case. I mean, now maybe you do. Anybody have another?
We have a question back here, and then I'll come up there for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious if Billy Meier, and you by extension, ever had any opinions on the abduction phenomena. And
Yeah.
it seems to be implied in your presentation, or even by Billy Meier, that because these events often take a disturbing context, the abduction events. It's implied in your presentation that there might not be an advanced race that might get here that wouldn't be benevolent. But I mean, I don't think there's really a moral barrier to technological advancement. I mean, the Nazis created the rockets, for example.
Right,
And
yeah.
I'm wondering, other than an explanation such as their military abductions, does he have an explanation for those events?
I would say this, from what I learned in reading this and thinking about it and all, the majority of so-called abductions, the majority, and cattle and human mutilations are secret military, again, for the purpose of demonizing extraterrestrials. The cover-up for UFOs and extraterrestrials began in the modern time, 110 years ago, over the battlefields of Europe. Let me go more specifically back to your abduction thing. What they have said is that most, as I say, most of the phenomena is terrestrial. There is a far smaller number, but some abductions of a negative nature have taken place, some that they call contact examinations, meaning that they were not malevolent in intent. They tried to wipe memories, but there were beings that examined people, put them back, and moved on their way. The ones who are underground, the reason, as he said, and you may not have been able to grasp that from the videos, the Pleiaren ostensibly do not interact at all with what are called the Earth foreigners, because some of those underground, while they have extremely high technology that we are no match for, which is why we shouldn't be shooting at their craft, they are not quite anywhere near as advanced in terms of what we would call spiritual or consciousness development. They have their own agendas for ruling things, and when the time comes that they may make themselves known in the service of those who will oppose the West, once that's settled out, they may have a desire to make a much more, let's say, dominant presence. So morality and technology, you're right, they are not necessarily in parity. Good, bad, and the rest of it exists everywhere. High technology, even high consciousness powers that some of the original gods of the earth had were used against the people here. And there's a lot of information about that in here. So I wouldn't worry about being abducted per se, unless we're running into the terrestrial military. And right now, the chance still exists that there can be the fake ET attack. With the things that are going on now, with the pressures on the current president, his state of mind, other things, threats of wars, you know, that no matter who the president is, when things get hot, a war can be a convenient way to distract, but we are in a very dangerous place that if we push too hard within a certain period of time, we will be in a very bad position. We are told that the world is turning against us, as if we didn't know, and will, and this is going to bring problems to us. There are, as of 2016, Meier was asked, he found out there were already 1,406 Islamist terrorist sleepers in America. There was just an article online, now it came from Alex Jones's site, I don't know that it's true, 16,000 more Islamist terrorists since the Biden open door policies, 177,000 terroristically inclined non-Islamists as of 2016. You know, we're at that in these times, and I don't mean to focus on that, but nobody in ufology will tell the truth. It's all about, you know, real or very imaginary contacts or extraterrestrials, when our job here is, what's the reason? It's to help us assure our future survival. Read his material, test it, challenge it, no beliefs, question.
Okay, you mentioned briefly about the Tic Tacs, and it kind of went over that a little fast.
Yeah.
February of 2024, I was in this area, and me and a friend looked up and we saw this thing that looked just like a Tic Tac flying towards Sedona, just over the treetops, so it was clear. I could see it, no noise, no windows, no wings, nothing. What did Billy, had he mentioned anything about Tic Tacs?
Well, no, it's just that he was talking all about the fake ET thing is tied into it. I happen to have been in Sedona for the second time in my life. Well, first time was '87. I was with a guy, we both knew about the Meier material. We went out to a national forest at night. We opened the door, get out of the car. This thing flies by, sparks, orange and blue sparks, silent, flies into the side of a mountain. What the heck was that? 1995, I'm here with a friend of mine. We step outside, a gray military type jet, no markings whatsoever, silently flying overhead, and a bunch of round physical objects, you could say orbs, I don't know, are jockeying behind the tail assembly. This is obviously an area within a certain proximity where secret military takes place. So most of what we're going to see are going to be the underground people and or the secret military. That's according to them, you know, and many of us have seen all sorts of things, but we can't do anything with UFOs. You know, UFO, MUFON, this, that, and the other thing. The Billy Meier UFO contacts, that's to get us in to figure out what's going on in our world and what can we do for ourselves, for our families, for each other to maintain our sanity through this.
Yeah, it's a deeper picture. We have one more question over here, and this will be our last because we're right at 5. So
Sure.
if people want time to buy your flash drive
Sure,
with the
thank
film,
you.
they'll be able to. So it's over here in the corner.
Hello, and thank you for your presentation. I always appreciate when we get messengers from anywhere to bring us the truth, and for those that are seeking the truth. I always thought it was really interesting, since I'm a daughter of 2 experiencers. My dad was in the Air Force, so he saw ships plenty, but he didn't have to sign an NDA, so he was able to tell us kids lots of stuff, that there's a lot of cover-ups, and I'm talking back into the 60s. And when I got older, I said, why did you tell, I mean, my parents had 9 kids. I said, why did you tell us that when we were so young? He said, I didn't want to die and not have my children not know the truth. So the main thing, and I'm a bishop's daughter, so the main thing he kept saying was, question everything, question authority. And so when I questioned myself right out of organized religion, my mom was upset. And I said, I just did what Dad taught us. So to grow up for many years and watch the world go by and seeing people belonging to religions and different politics and different mindsets and, you know, attached to their cultural beliefs or family, it's been really interesting to see the level of hypnotic trance with the people, or level of brainwashing. And I concluded it's a level of brainwashing, or it's even just as basic ego, where I have 3 siblings that are still in the church, and I mean, everybody can choose what they want to believe. I totally respect that. I just find it interesting, as somebody that wanted to be a psychologist, how humans can be, you can prove something to them, show them, they can smell it, taste it, you know, whatever, and they still don't believe it. Because when you mention here about COVID, it's like, it was another time in my life I'm watching the world go by and go, wow, I didn't realize how many people, even with 3 doctorates of my friends and very wealthy, or, you know, and like where they fell on which side. And, you know, and I saw right through it. I was like, I'm not one that gets vaxxed, and I stopped vaccinating my kids years ago. I'm a grandma now. But I called my son-in-law in Alaska, and he goes, Mom, stay out of the hospital. We're killing people. And I go, so are you? I have a closer relationship with him than my daughter. I said, you being a nurse, you know, in the ER in Anchorage at the time, and I graduated top of his class, and he was in the Air Force. I said, well, are you going to get it or not? Because, you know, I don't judge you either way, because I raised my kids. You do what you want, whatever makes you happy. You just came through me now. Go live your life. Get out of here. I got mine to live. He wouldn't, because it was blank. And I said, I heard that rumor, and people are telling me that was a conspiracy. Why can we not wake up friends, families, community members to what the truth is, stuff that I've known since I was a really little girl, and there's life after life. Yeah, I saw spirits when I was little all the time. But why can we not get people to wake up? Because I truly believe that's more the focus we need to focus on, is the more people wake up to the power of love, especially what was taken out of the Bible of just how naturally it is to love ourselves, and that we're a part of that mass consciousness. We need more people to wake up.
Well, I'd like to just pop something in. Billy says there are 4 main cornerstones: love, peace, freedom, harmony. And if humans live and build their lives and their relationships on those cornerstones, they would have the abundance of life that is here for us to have. A quick couple other things. In March 2nd, 2020, I began sending Meier's information that I had received in February about the disease and all the recommendations from the Plejaren. There were 57 cases in the entire country. There were 5 cases in Arizona. I tried to reach from the governor's office, medical, educational, any and everybody, NPR, etc. No one would even look into the information. They censored it at a major PR firm company. That was when there were only a handful of people in Arizona and less than 60 in the country. And I have all of that documented. Nobody would allow it. No one would look into it. And I'll just leave you a thought, because as you say, everybody is free to believe and discover for themselves whatever is their truth for their consciousness and development. If you want an interesting experience, no matter your religious affiliation, look for a biography of a man named Jesus Christ. A biography, not a religious book. For the most important, no matter who or what he was, most important human being, arguably, who's affected people for a couple, 1,000 years here. Try and find one biography of a man named Jesus Christ, written by a biographer in the Middle East, contemporaneous to when there were 60 or 70 biographers there. If you can find one biography of a man by that name describing his life, you should win a prize, because I have been unable to find one. You can find biographies of lesser important people. Everybody probably is, but I'm talking about kings, emperors, queens, all sorts of philosophers going back a few hundred years BC. Not one biographer. But if you go to Isaiah 7:14 and to Matthew 1:23, you will learn what his real name was. And if you want to know the whole story, I suggest you look into the Talmud Emmanuel. But I've taken a lot of your time. I wish we had hours to go into this, because it's like pulling the thread on a sweater. But thank you for your kindness and receptivity. If you are interested, I recommend our film and our cute little flash drive, and the companion comes with it. And go to the blog, read to your heart's content, investigate, question, send challenges or questions to me through the blog, just so you can find out what your own take on this is, because there's nothing to believe. We just try to present it a bit passionately at times, but we try to present it. So thank you very much.